Hello, everybody. This introduction is just driving me nuts, and I can't figure out why it's so pausy. And Rad, thank you for joining us, even though you're probably on your way home. Oh my gosh, today Eric is not. Eric's still busy taking care of his family's some family responsibilities. The joy of being our age is that you end up going to your parents' house and helping clean things out. And that always presents other issues with relatives and things. We do what we can. We try to do our best. As this is a Christian show, I want to start with a reading from the Bible. So, my devotions I'm sending out. I'm in the middle of Matthew, and let me just pull this up. And today I read Matthew 9:27-31. And when Jesus departed from there, two blind men followed him, crying and saying, "You son of David, have mercy on us." And when he was coming to the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said unto them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" They said unto him, "Yea, Lord." Then he touched their eyes, saying, "According to your faith be it unto you." And their eyes were opened. And Jesus straitly charged them, saying, "See that no man know it." But they went, when they went, when they departed, spread abroad his fame in all that country. I want you to imagine this. I don't know how many people know this about me, but that's what I used to work with blind people. That was my job. So when a blind person is, when you got a person who's blind, they generally need some help getting from point A to point B, either with a cane, a dog, or a person using something called sighted guide. Yeah, here we have two blind men calling out to Jesus, following him. They are, think about this, they are present and in pursuit of Jesus, but how? Every little pebble in their way was an obstacle, yet they keep coming. They keep calling out and proclaiming that Jesus is the rightful king. That's what, by calling him the son of David, they were saying he's the rightful king. He's the king over Israel. And that's it was kind of bold, and that could have presented problems to Jesus' ministry. I think that's why he told them to be quiet. But think about this. They keep coming. They keep calling out who he is. You son of David. This word choice proclaims him the Messiah. They also continue on until they discover they have followed him into a house. Wow. He's trapped. That's kind of what they're thinking. They're going to catch him now. Well, their faith led them to pursue Jesus so much. Just think about that. To get someplace without that kind of sight, and to get there, it seems no relative was willing to help them. That's something to think about, making them likely dependent on begging in order to eat. So they struggled. They had been struggling to survive, but they pursued Jesus until Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" At that moment, they knew they'd achieved their goal. Getting the king's attention meant they would be healed. When Jesus asked, "Do they believe?" they are joyously celebrating, practically yelling, "Yes, we believe." Keep thinking about this. I mean, this is a blind person getting a hold, and they got Jesus. Jesus says, "Do you believe?" "Oh, yeah, we believe." And the next thing, they're practically yelling this. I could just imagine them screaming it out. "Oh, yes, we believe." And then he says, "According to your faith, be it unto you." And then they are healed. I imagine they danced, acted like children, racing about, giving thanks to God. Jesus asked them to tell no one of their healing. These men can't help but share the joy of what Jesus did for them. When people no longer saw them as blind or observed their absence where they begged, or were told that these blind men were healed by Jesus, they must have rejoiced with them. So let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, you heal the blind, you do the impossible things. You make the impossible things possible with us, Lord. Because of your great love, Lord, there's so much today that just seems impossible, but we know that you are in charge of all things. We ask, Lord, that you would just continue to pray for those over us. We pray for those in leadership. Lord, change the hearts and minds of those in leadership so they could follow you. In your name, amen. Now, I have a few oddities to talk about. I don't know if everybody's aware of what happened in Texas. I caught that earlier today. Let me pull that up. I was kind of surprised. Did anybody? I did not expect that discussion that they would that- hear something like another school shooting. My first year teaching, uh, I was one of the few who started in a year when Columbine happened. That was my first year teaching. So whenever I read about a school shooting, it brings back scary memories. Um, Again, when your first year teaching has that experience, it's just scary. So I'm going to
Y-
share where I'm getting this from, and we can all we can do really is pray for the families. Um, I don't have anything better to say. We should definitely be praying for those families.
the
So
families of the other school children that witnessed it, and the
yeah,
teacher.
yes.
I
So
can't.
this comes from, yeah, yes, definitely. We're gonna pray for now 14. Wow, this has been updated since last time I looked. Um, 14 students and a teacher dead in Robb Elementary School shooting in Texas. Any child present in that school, any parent is probably bawling their eyes out. I'm scared to think of where they're supposed to be the most safe. Uh, yeah, and 14 students. And this is by Gabrielle Fonrouge and Marianne Martinez. And I'm just going to go down. An 18-year-old gunman opened fire at a Texas elementary school today, killing 14 kids and one teacher before he was shot dead by police, Governor Greg Abbott said. The suspected shooter, identified as Salvador Ramos, allegedly shot his grandmother before heading to Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a possible handgun and rifle around noon local time, according to Abbott and ABC News. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered Robb Elementary in Uvalde with a handgun. Okay. And just, Abbott told reporters the shooter had they believe the shooter had attended Uvalde High School. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Ramos, the shooter himself, is deceased. It is believed that responding officers killed him. That's the picture of the he used. Wow. Um,
He looks so sad.
he the so this is a picture. I mean, yeah, depressed. I'm. I mean, this looks like a star candidate for some of the programs. There's a in high schools. I don't know about elementary schools, but in high schools we have a required emergency response team for pointing out cases like this. I mean, like a person being this dangerous, or could be potentially a threat. I don't think anybody could have expected him to approach an elementary school and do this. Maybe they would have thought maybe he was already on point and target by the school. I don't know. Again, it's too early for a lot of this information to get out because it's the same day. In addition to the 15 fatalities, which included one boy, one girl, 15 kids, another 15 kids and two adults were injured in this shooting, according to the hospital officials. 14 children and one adult were taken to Uvalde Medical Center, while a 10-year-old girl and a 66-year-old woman, both in critical condition, were taken to University Health San Antonio, the only level 1 trauma center for both adults and children in the region. Texans across the state are grieving for the victims of the senseless crime and the community of Uvalde. Cecilia and I mourn this horrific loss, and we urge all Texans to come together to show our unwavering support to all who are suffering, Abbott said in a statement. This is the police walking near the school, doing what they could. Yeah. They had the children getting on school buses to go home. Again, this is 60 miles east of the southern border of Mexico, about 80 miles west of San Antonio. I've got the alert somewhere around 1 o'clock where this had started, and they started to put it up on Facebook and other things, and I saw that. I never thought it would be this bad. Kind of mind blowing. We won't know a lot about what's happened until tomorrow. All we can do is pray for those. We can pray for those who are at a loss, the families. That's what I recommend today. We could do that now. Let's pray for those families. Lord Jesus, Lord, we thank you for doing the impossible things, Lord. Even when evil rears its ugly head and seeks to destroy, Lord. There'll be so many people asking questions, why? And I've come to the point where I don't ask that anymore. I just know things are getting worse. So, Lord, we just ask that you would put a hedge of protection around those families, Lord. Help point them to you. Help them to realize that you are in their lives, Lord, no matter how things look, no matter how bad things are. It's a horrible thing. There's no denying that. Lord, we pray for the salvation of those, Lord, that if anything, or that somehow this could be used for your glory. I have no clue as how that can be done. Pray for those officers who had that horrible duty of killing a child to save others. Lord, I pray for their protection, Lord, and I pray for their family, Lord, to help deal with that horrific situation. We pray for those who were first responders that had I hate to call this the cleanup job. Lord, it's a horrific task for everyone. I don't know how you come back from something like this, Lord. Just ask, Lord, that you would pray, Lord, that you would just do something for these people, Lord, that they could see that you are God. Help them to see you and feel your presence. In Jesus' name, amen. That is...
Amen.
School shootings are nothing but scary. And I still remember going through trainings about what we had to do. I mean, I've only been out of teaching for 2 years. And we had to do, every school is required to do a lockdown drills. And it was, I still remember the first time we went through the training, and they told us things like, okay, the reason why you shut and lock your door is that in every case, there has never been a shooter who's tried to enter a locked door. Okay. That's what we were told. I don't know that it's true, but that's what we were told. Um, I in Columbine, which they don't often talk about, they tried to change part of the truth, the history here, which really bothered me. They tried to say that this guy was targeting certain people. Well, he targeted Christians. Those two boys targeted Christians. They didn't go to the gym. They went to the library. They went to the cafeteria where they knew Christians were, and they shot them. That I know, and that stuff's been revealed. But they keep trying to change the narratives. I've got to go away from this story because it's hard for me, having taught for as many years. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of things. So take your time when you're listening to the stories like this. The first reports are never wholly true. And I mean by that, it's not because the police officers are giving misinformation. A lot of times it's simply because the person's reporting the news want to put their opinion in it, and that's not good. We've left the time where you only print what's important and right. Now we allow news sources to print opinions as facts, and they don't get sued, which blows my mind. So just take everything slowly. That's part of what we have to do. We have to wait and hear all the information. It's not going to be polite. It's not going to be kind, and none of it's going to be easy. That's what I'll say. Try to get onto a different topic here because there's so much more that's happening. Today, I know Eric has covered a ton on Aisha being 6 years old when she married, and 9 years old when she was bedded by by the quote prophet of Islam. I still can't find a passage in the scripture that calls him a prophet, so I should probably just call him the messenger of Islam. And today I got sent an article, and I was looking at it, and I'm just kind of marveling this guy got away with saying the things he was saying. And I have issues when people don't speak things that are wholly true. And this kind of got me. As I was looking through this, I just sat there like, how can you say these things and not tell the whole truth? That really bothers me. So he wrote an article that got published. It's like a letter to an editor and academic, and this is what bothered me: is where it's published. And I wrote to him that it's not academic. You're not citing primary sources. You can't consider this academic if you're not citing primary sources. Well, this is the stuff that gets to me. Why is any organization, that's out there not looking at these claims of facts, and you're saying, what are they? I mean, are you really going to make these? I'm just trying to pull up the article. I'm sorry. This is what I'm trying to find. Going through my history. And problem is I read too much. Okay, let's see. Let's pull this one up a minute. And if I can't find, here we go. This is an article by Justin Perot, and I'll share this. This kind of blew my mind. Some things you just sit there and you go, how can someone make those statements? Well, this one got me. All right. Thanks. So, age of consent, class consent. Oh, it's in my download files. I could have done this faster. All right, we'll do that. All right. Age of Consent in Classical Islamic Law, and this is by Justin Perot, Parrot or Perot, and it's. I mean, if you look at this, it's had 31,008 views. It's only a 5-page file, so I'm just gonna stop sharing for a minute so I can pull the article up. This is just going to. I mind boggled that this particular issue, this particular paper. Where is it? And we'll see where it comes up. Okay. I'm just going to throw this over here. The topic of age of consent. Now, here's why I have a serious issue with the age of consent thing. The age of consent issue for me is offensive, because in the age of consent, how do you consider something an age of consent when the child doesn't have the faculties?
Yeah, it's all up to the men.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
getting at.
consent.
Yeah, that's the key word. They're a child.
And I think I might have to. Yeah, I don't think I. Yeah, in order to consent, you have to be. That's not going to work. All right.
I even go against that too, because a child could say, well, yes, without even understanding. It's the adults that need to step up and be mature and know that a child is a child and a woman is a woman. So anyway, thank you. That just really ticks me off when they say, well, the child needs to. No, she's a child. The parents, that's when we step up and we say the truth. Thank you, Paul, though.
Well, again, I'm looking at where this is published. I mean, this guy says his credentials are New York University, Abu Dhabi. All right. So, okay. So he's in the UAE and he's publishing an article, and I'm just going to read one of these parts that got to me. It says second paragraph says, I'll just start from the beginning. The age of consent to sexual relations is not firmly established in classical Islamic law like it is in many Muslim and non-Muslim countries today. That's bullcrap.
Right.
Yeah. It's to say it's not firmly established. Well, I say bullcrap because the truth of the matter, it's kind of, this is doublespeak. What
Yeah,
they're not
they're
telling you
lying.
is
Yeah.
that they allow the age of consent to be extremely young, to the point where we're talking about prepubescent girls. And yes, that's why it's not firmly established. Again, they say that it is in many Muslim and non-Muslim countries today. In most Muslim countries, they're not allowed to establish a age of consent. You want to know why? Because then they would be speaking against their prophet they would be calling him a pedophile.
Right.
And they can't do that. So this is doublespeak. And I know I wrote back and I considered this crap. I mean, there's no citations from a primary document here. So there's no citations to the Quran, the Hadith, or to the Sharia. So I got really ticked off when I looked at this, and it's just like, how can you consider yourself a scholar when you're going to cite sources? Oh, wait! I'll share the sources. This is where I got angry. Just looking at these sources made me angry.
Is this man a Muslim scholar, Paul?
That's what I would say he is. So let me finish this paragraph. It says the appropriate age of sexual relations was set in traditional pre-modern societies by either individual families or local custom, often linked to signs of physical puberty. Really? I mean, to think that your age of consent would be related to growing sexually mature. The only person I know that was even close to thinking of that is this guy named Mo or Muhammad or Abdul, whichever they wish to call him. And, that's all. And it took him to get excited. A girl who was coming of age. Ugh.
Coming of age? She's 6 years old. Coming of age to what?
No, he started to play with her at that age, but
yes,
when he
I know.
couldn't contain himself anymore, she's 9. That's just, yeah. But we do know she hadn't come of age yet.
Yeah.
She hadn't come of age yet because she was playing with dolls.
Exactly.
And under Islam, you're not allowed to, girls were not allowed to play with dolls. Okay, not just Islam, but Arabs at this point weren't allowed to play with dolls after they had come of age. That was supposed. Again, I haven't seen anything in Arab traditions that would indicate that. I mean, I've looked. It sounds depraved to look for this stuff when you think about it. Trying to prove, okay, there's a cultural allowance for this. Oh, like I said, it sounds pervy. It sounds disgusting. But if you're trying to do that, you won't find it. It doesn't exist. And
You know what's sick?
Yeah,
You know what's really sick is the whole thing started when Muhammad saw Aisha at the age of 3
yeah. Oh, that's even
and
worse.
said,
Yeah.
"I'm going to marry this girl." Ugh.
Well, and he was what? He was almost 50 then. I'm just mind numbed when I think about it. Why? So here's where we get into this other part. It says, why is this issue important today? He says, sexual relations are religiously unlawful in Islam in the absence of a contract of marriage of concubinage or concubinage. Concubinage disappeared when the Muslim world marshaled Islamic legal arguments to abolish slavery. Never happened. Never.
Right.
So he's making crap up. Like, excuse me. I have Reliance of the Traveler right here.
Hello.
I mean, it never happened. All right, this is Sharia. It's got 3 schools of Sharia in there. It never happened. All right, so he's sitting here lying to his people. So then he says, so consent is now only relevant to marriage. Really? Do you know what Islamic law says about consent? If the woman is silent, that's consent.
You mean if the girl is silent?
Yeah. If
the
the
little
girl, the
girl,
woman, the child, if the female is silent, that's her consent. If
yeah,
she's
that's
scared
a
to
bunch of
death
bull.
that they're going to kill her or her family, and she's silent, all of a sudden, that's consent.
Yeah,
So
that's how they justify themselves to say that. But we know that is just literally insane thinking. Thank you.
Again, this is this to see this published someplace. I mean, I get asked every once in a while to review stuff like this, and I didn't get asked this time, and I would have said no. I would not have allowed them. I've commented on 2 or 3. One, sometimes they take a side that I would like them to take, but if they don't cite the sources, scholarly, or they have an opinion expressed in there that is wishy-washy, I have a problem, because you either take a strong stand or you should sit down. Believe one way or the other, not in the middle. And there's a reason not to, because when you're standing in the middle, you're going to get run over because it's just imaginary. And that's, you can't be the wishy-washy person. Let's keep going here. This is what drove me nuts. Again, I want to go back up and point out this particular piece is by Justin Parrott, New York University to Abu Dhabi in the UAE. So, this is a problem. He says, classic Islamic jurists generally allowed a marriage to be contracted with a child, but not consummated through sexual intercourse until the child gained puberty or was physically ready to do so. How can you be physically ready to do so if you haven't gone through and finished puberty? Finished.
Exactly.
Hear the word, finished. I mean, so what we know today, this is, again, he's making this crap up.
Yeah, because every female starts their menses at different years of their lives.
So here's where he starts to tell the truth. Look at no consensus age in Islamic law. Why? Well, because Muhammad married a prepubescent girl and had sex with her when she was prepubescent. So that goes against
Right.
their claim about, okay, they have to go through puberty. So there is no consensus in Islamic law around the age of consent to marriage or sexual relations. For the same reason, there was no consent in the West or elsewhere. Oh, wait a minute. Would we have arrested somebody or put them in jail? Or actually, back then, they wouldn't have arrested them. They wouldn't have put them in jail. They probably would have just killed them. I mean,
Or
that's
hung them.
hung
Yeah.
them. Yeah, they
Mhm.
would have been. It would have
Yep.
been an immediate execution in some manner.
Exactly.
And some things are too horrific to have legislated back then. Yeah, just the discussion would make people disgusted and sick. So I don't think it would have been a law for until we ran into too many perverts that wanted to destroy children. That's my best way to look at it. And only Islam made it legal. How do I say it made it legal? And I'm saying this over and over again. Oh, I'll just read it from here. Oh, I'm going to put it up. This is from my book, The Cancer Civilization Jihad, and I got this from
Uh-oh.
a primer on the Code of Muslim Personal Laws of the Philippines. Now, get this. This is a primer on the Code of Muslim Personal Laws of the Philippines. Now, the funny thing about this, shortly after I used this in my book, it got taken down. Well, I love archive.org. They have it. So any Muslim male at least 15 years of age and any Muslim female at the age of puberty or upwards and not suffering from any impediment under the provisions of the code. Of course, they're saying you can't be mentally ill or mentally retarded. May contract marriage. A female is presumed to have attained puberty upon reaching the age of 15. Well, that's somewhat believable. Okay, 15. Okay, but you're saying you can automatically get this girl married off. They didn't say she had a choice. That's the other thing catch. Here's the next thing they say. Can a female below 15 years of age contract marriage? Now they've said 15 is when you pretty much know that they've at least entered puberty. So again, this is a question proposed. Can a female below 15 years of age contract marriage? They said this is again from the Muslim Personal Laws of the Philippines. Yes. The Sharia District Court may, upon petition of a proper wali, these are like guardians, or the solemnization of a female who less than 15 but not below 12 years of age has attained puberty. You're telling me a 12-year-old can understand concepts like marriage, concepts like sexual intercourse. I mean, 12 years old. Think about what grade are we talking about? 6 years. How old is it? I don't have any. I have grandchildren. It's not even a year old, but it's been so long since I've worked with little ones. 12 years old. What are we talking about? 6th grade? 5th grade? 4th? I mean, this is scary stuff when you start thinking about it. And that's what they're willing to say, okay. And this thing here, this is probably the most offensive thing I saw in this whole document. Operative principle, no harm or returning harm. Regardless of one's opinion on the age of consent, all classical jurists accepted in principle the illegality of causing harm to another person without a legitimate reason. What does that have to do with the topic?
Exactly.
Do not cause harm or return harm. The jurist explicitly applied the principle to sexual relationships, he says. Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi, representing the Shafi school, states that this is a necessary condition when discussing the rights of wives to living and maintenance. If it's possible to have intercourse with her without harming her, he may do it. And who's going to determine if it can harm her? I mean, the child's not going to know. And the man, this pervert, won't care. There are so many things that happen when it's when the child's body is not ready, you can
You
tear.
mean when the
There's
woman's body is not ready? When
well,
the
in their
woman,
concept,
when the
yeah,
woman, yeah, she's ready, but when a child, yeah, I'm sorry, you said it right. When a
yeah,
child's body, no, she's a
yeah,
child. She's
yeah.
thinking of toys and the fantasy in her own mind and her parents and her animals, her sisters and brothers. That's her world. Thank
You
you.
know, this I'm just amazed. This came up, to see that this was published, and I'm just disgusted. New York University's best out of the United Arab Emirates. Wow. Um,
Paul, as much as you're disgusted, we women, not to go into comparison, but we women are even more disgusted because it's happening to us as females.
it bothers me to think, the more I learn and more I had to keep this, reading stuff like this. I had to get out of it and go. I had to put it aside. Eric talks about having you feel like you have to go take a shower after some of these topics. You talk about Islam, yes. Ugh. Um, I look at this. It makes me angry to think that people are out there saying these things and doing, thinking this is okay. I have issues when we start seeing. I mean, how can this? My biggest issue with this whole thing is somebody was allowed to publish this as an academic article, 5 pages long, making his statements without citing primary sources. That to me is a problem. You can't call it academic. I actually wrote to the guy and I said, I don't consider this academic, of any academic value
Amen.
because you don't know what primary sources are, and you're refusing to cite them. We have a problem. You're saying it doesn't exist in Sharia, but you're not providing any connection to Sharia.
Did he
Well,
answer you back?
no, he hasn't.
No.
I
So
was
he's
disgusted.
hiding.
Yeah.
So he's hiding.
And so here this, here this American non-Muslim knows more about Islam. Oh, wait a minute. It's more likely that I don't. It's more likely that he doesn't want anybody to know the truth. And this is problematic. My biggest issue here again is that there are mosques all around in almost every country of the world. And they are, in many of these mosques, they have no problem with granting marriages without getting state approval. So this is how they can have the 2 or 3 or 4 wives, or 6 or 7, whichever they choose to come up with their conclusions as to how many wives they can have. They'll get one state approved and the rest not. I'm aware of how that's done because of research that I've done and people that I've interacted with. And I don't know that, I mean, when you hear about this as well, and there's actual news articles out there where people are talking about this concept. And again, in the Quran, there is no concept of marriage. The word they use for marriage is the F word. All right. Keep that in mind. So their concept of marriage isn't permanence. Their concept of marriage is getting it on. And that's the nicest way I can put it. This is scary, scary stuff, and it should bother and make every one of us sickened. But
Stand up and say no more.
yeah. So what can we do when we get to this? What can we do? One of the things I would like to say to do is to put on your ears and listen around your community. When you're around, if you do go to Islamic, you go to the mosques, I would say to look through their libraries, their bookstores, and see if they have any books that endorse this type of thing. And then if
Yeah,
you
I
find
would
them,
have a
go to
long
your
way to
local.
go before I found one.
Yeah, I would say go to your local police department and report them for promoting pedophilia. I mean, I would say, look at them, report them for doing that, because if they're putting books on their shelves that say you can marry somebody under the age of consent in your state, and that would tell them, oh, we need to watch these people. We need to see if they're bringing in child brides. Well, that'll be really hard to tell. Here's the reason why. This is one of the reasons why it's very hard to detect in a mosque. Women tend to go in one door, women and children, and the men go in a different door. It's whose car do they get out of? And are they treated like a wife or like a daughter? And how do you know that when the girl is 6, 7, 8?
Yeah, well, the closest one to me is 5 hours away. So,
Closest mosque to me is about 1.5 miles. And I would say it gets regularly reported because they receive shipments at odd times. And I know about that because I know the people who do the reporting, and they just feel something's odd. And I'll when they report, every time they report and no one does anything, I end up hearing about it later on. I haven't been over
What
that.
kind of shipments?
That's
Does
the thing.
anybody know?
Nobody seems to be aware.
Oh,
I
wow.
thought maybe they were
That's
trying to
stupidity.
receive shipments for something, and we're talking about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning shipments, and it didn't make any sense.
Well, that sounds like they're hiding something.
Well, that's what
I
they
mean,
were
I know
saying.
the Middle East, I mean, Syria, where my ex-husband was born, he's 14 hours away. So if they go by their time clock, then I could see them receiving things later. But then how are they getting it when in our time, our postal office is on our time,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we're
So
talking about
then
trucks,
some,
though. We're not
yes,
talking about
so then
mail.
somehow it's coming through other channels other than our postal service.
Yeah,
See?
there's about, I'd say about 10 or 15 mosques in the area that I live in. And there's one major mosque, and it's tied directly to the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no question about that. The Muslim Student Association out of the University of Rochester has declared an affiliation with it. So, again, being the researcher on these things, some of these you just don't want to know these connections, but they exist. And the reason I know they exist is because the guy who got me really involved in doing all this research is the guy who brought the International Institute of Islamic Thought into Nazareth College, and that's Dr. Muhammad Shafiq. And his mosque was the Westfall Mosque, is what us non-Muslims call it, the Islamics. It's the center of Rochester. I'm not sure if that's still its name, but I mean, they're right on Westfall Road, and yeah, I mean, the connection is undeniable. They're connected to the Islamic Circle of North America and many other organizations that are listed with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Can I pick your brain a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, so what grounding could the police department or even the FBI have grounds to investigate that place and investigate their incoming stuff at odd hours? Thank you.
And that's where it gets interesting. I don't know that they would. People are told to when you see something, say something, and this is doing that. When the police refuse to look into something because it stands out, I would have an issue with that. But the concept of having, I mean, I almost, the time that I was being talked to about this, it wasn't Ramadan. The last time and I was thinking Ramadan, maybe they're bringing food in for meals, at odd times. That's the only thing I can think of. But no. Last time I was talked to about this, it wasn't even Ramadan. So I'm still trying to figure out what they were, and I can't come up with it. I mean, I get that. Having done retail and restaurant, your shipments come at odd times, and you have to be there. But most of them are going to be during your working hours. I worked at McDonald's. We had a 24-hour store, and we would get shipments about 11:30, midnight sometimes. Again, that was during our working hours. But I failed to see a normal shift where you would be, there at 3 or 4 in the morning, unless the mosque is a place where people live, and that would be a code violation.
Okay, so you said say something, see something, which I have that book.
Well, no, that one says say nothing. I think see
Or
something.
yeah. They played with words, which was yeah, I understand. Okay, so if people have said something because they see something, does it ever get back to the public that they have that the police or the FBI or the CIA has acted on it, or
In general, the answer is no. I
I
know
mean,
of
can you
one.
ever go back and say, I reported this 15,
Yes, you can.
days ago or 15 weeks
So
ago?
my
I wanted to
suggestion,
know the,
yeah,
the outcome.
there's a way to go about it, and that is to find out who your local counterterrorism task force is. That's the first place to go. And the reason I say that is they're usually the ones that come up with, they're usually the ones that get this information. So if we're talking about mosques or something like that, they're usually the ones called to respond. Now, if we're talking about reporting pedophilia, it should be your local police force. If you're finding books in a mosque that would support it. So when I say, I would also talk to when I do that, I would because it's pedophilia is usually tied to to people across the nation. If you're reporting it to your local news, to your local police, and nothing's done, I would report it to the FBI. And that's how I would go, or to your state. Change the agency. You have to go to a higher agency to report it.
Right.
And then, so you go back X amount of, say 2 or 3 months later, you go back and you can inquire if any action was taken. You're allowed to do that. You're not going to always receive an answer.
And why is that, I wonder?
Well, if there's an ongoing investigation, they're not allowed to give you any information.
Okay, can they tell you that at least they are investigating it, that, you have reported? That they're just not tucking it under and throwing it in a drawer.
I think in some cases they probably won't be allowed to tell you.
They won't be allowed.
Yeah, in some cases.
In some cases, I do understand that.
Yeah. It's not consistent. I had a case where I reported something, and the way I went about reporting it was probably the best way, which was in person. And,
right.
So I was able to give more, and I left there, and I think, oh my gosh, a couple days later, I'm thinking I should have said this, I should have said that. I had the guy's phone number. I could call and talk to him. And it just some things just make you stop and think, what are you seeing? So yes, I say my preference is not to, there's things I have reported over the online format of, filling out the FBI reporting form. I have received calls back from the FBI when I've done that, at least I think twice so far. The first time I did this, I was able to directly, show them what I was seeing, because they had a computer in front of themselves, and I told them exactly what I was looking at, and they're like, "Oh, "Oh, we didn't know that. Thank you." Like, how could you? Again, I mean, the thing I have to keep reminding myself is that, that part of, or the reason why our top, our again, the FBI was supposed to be our elite group. They were supposed to
I
be the
know,
best of the
right?
best. And, the truth is that the best of the best in general are your front line, which is your local police force, because they're the ones that stop most crime. They're the ones that prevent most crime simply by being there.
Yeah, they're
Um,
local.
yeah, and they see stuff, they report it, and then it gets pushed up. So again, they're having the same issues. They'll report stuff, they're able to follow up and see if things are being done because it stays within the law enforcement community. But with us, it's not always the same thing. You can inquire. There's nothing wrong with inquiring. But again, you may not always find out. The last one that I reported, I didn't get the answer I wanted. I did tell him some of the information he had been told was not truthful, and like that was a problem because I had evidence, but I couldn't prove it. That to the contrary, and so he probably thought I was a little nutty. But the truth is, I had. I mean, I wish I'd never thought about videotaping kids in a school setting, but in this situation, another teacher had reported something, and I unknowingly was going to report something different and ended up backing up that teacher 100%. And that blew the investigators' mind because I went in person, and I don't think he ever spoke to her in person. If he did, I'd be surprised. And I pretty much know who this is, who reported it. And they're like, "What do you? I mean, why would you believe?" I says, "Look," I says, I've seen these kids, and they're doing exactly what she said they're doing, and I haven't observed what she observed, but I observed enough to know that that was probably true. Um, One of the claims was that the phones the kids had were not able to receive videos. Like, excuse me, they have smartphones. They have phones that are more expensive than mine, and they're using them. So don't tell me they don't have phones capable of receiving video. Uh, I says, I see them every day with these. They have to bring them to school. So don't tell me. So you should have seen the guy's face when I said that. So part of this is why I say it's important when you do report. If you can work up enough courage to go talk to someone personally, that's better. If you can't, that's fine too. And don't feel bad about inquiring later. I think that's important. Now, when I file, the other thing you can do later down the road, you can file something called a Freedom of Information Act request. And let's say you just want to know if there has been, so you go down the road, maybe a couple years later, you can file a Freedom of Information Act request about a location to a police, and you would file it with your local police. And I don't know if they will or will not, but you can file that and ask if there has been any investigations related to that particular location. They have to respond within, I believe it's within 2 weeks. They have to respond saying yes or yes they can, or no they won't answer this answer. They just have to acknowledge that you filed, and then I think they have about 30 days to say they will answer it. And then they have a timeline that they assign, usually assigned afterwards. I can't count how many FOIAs I filed. You have to be very specific when you file FOIAs, and there's key phrases that you can do, so you can get a lot of the answers for free. One of the ways to get stuff for free instead of paying for copying or whatever is just simply to say, "I'm willing to receive all my information via email." Instead of sending a boatload of crap through the packaging or whatever, then you don't get charged for any of that, which is great. when I file FOIAs, again, being specific, you have to be, if you're going to talk about an address, a location, you want to list everything that you can think about that you want. Has there been any investigations surrounding this location? You have to be very, very specific. Any criminal investigations, any investigations regarding the persons employed at or working or claiming residence or whatever at these locations. And that's how you would go about that. Again, being very specific is extremely important. That solves a lot of problems. Now, I'm mentioning residence because we've talked about mosque, because when the mosque was being planned here to be at the what they called the 9/11 location, I saw the plans. I didn't understand them as well as somebody else who got up and very publicly made a statement talking about, why are there bedrooms in this mosque? Why are there, and he had lots of questions. I was just, it was just mind blowing to me when he was talking about bedrooms in a place that was supposed to be a mosque, a worship center. If you go back a few years, 50 to not between 50 and 100 years ago, it wasn't unusual for a residence of a caretaker to be within or just outside of the church. So you would see that a house, like you'd have a parking lot, there'd be a house, and then there'd be a church nearby. So either the pastor would live there or a caretaker would live there who took care of the church. So that makes sense. But when we're talking about 6 to 8 bedrooms, what is that about? And we're talking about 6 to 8 beds, or what's the issue here? I mean, how is that a place of worship and not a place of residence? And that's what they were seeing in this. And they didn't, when those questions came up, I was at one, two, about 3 or 4 places where that was brought up. And never, I mean, they would never go farther than letting him bring it up, and they would never talk about it. Both sides. He was the only one, this guy was the only one who would bring it up. And everybody would drop that issue, and the rest of us are going, wait a minute, we want to know more. But again, we're the ones with the inquisitive minds. We want to know why things are happening in a certain way. Phil Haney would have, I never got a chance to interact with him, but I think he would have found this, fun to play with and find more information about. But I'm sure he already knew about the New York City mosque back then. So, yeah.
Jay Smith has spoken about that in Europe, that the women that do mota, they go to the mosques, they have the man pay the imam, because they were always afraid that they would do the deed and the guy would not pay her.
Oh,
so they're
so they're
doing mota. Yes, they're doing. And when COVID happened, I started asking God, okay, what is, even in America, it's going to shut them down because everybody's afraid of COVID, right?
Now but
it caused me to think about, it caused me to think about what Jay Smith had said, is that's what they're doing. They're doing mota, and they're not only doing that. It's when the husband says talak, 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 then they have to go have sex with somebody else. So they're most likely having it in the mosque as well.
I look at some of the stuff that's going on. I mean, when you read Sharia and you see some of these things, it's shocking and offensive. But as a researcher, when you look these things up and find them, the talak, 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 if you say it 3 times, you're supposed to be able to, it's a, depending on which country you're in, that's a legal divorce. Just doing that.
Yeah.
And the husband can just do away with her. He can kick her out of the house, physically kick her out of the house. And I mean, toss everything. I mean, usually the wife at this point has next to nothing by the time that they've done that. And what I mean by next to nothing, if you have to understand, under Islam, women are property. They are not treated like equals by any means. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. I mean, so I've gone to. This is why I also talk about how a Muslim woman will birth her guardian. We think about that somewhat. Okay, let's look at this. You have to take. We would say, okay, the concept isn't that far off in what really happens. Okay, so you're older. You've had your children, and in your old age, they look after you. Okay, that kind of makes sense. But from the time the male child is 8 to 10 years old, he's telling you what to do, and you have to obey. Yeah. It when you see some of these things, I had a situation where I had to go visit a child who was being absent, and went to an Islamic household, and they had the big brother come out because there was no father present, and she was there in a full burqa and covered, head to toe, and I'd ask a question looking straight at the mom, and she would respond in Arabic and tell him, and he would tell me. But I made it pretty clear I wanted her to answer me. I mean, I knew she knew English because she was able to be functioning, but that was how things went. And kid came back to school. We had a good time, but there's problems with this culture in that respect, because for teachers, there are laws that we have to respect about guardianship. We can't provide certain information unless it's provided to a parent. We can't accept information unless it's from a parent or guardian. And when we're talking about the brother or the sister, sorry, the brother, no sister, the brothers or the male relatives also stepping in and playing the role of dad, we have a problem, because legally us teachers can't do that. We can't give them that information. When the parents when the mother's choosing to use them as like a interpreter, well, that kind of muddies the waters. But when you're not allowed to directly, again, this is wordplay. It's kind of scary. I know I've been in the situation. I know there's probably several others that have been in that situation. Some of this stuff you sit there and go, why? Let's see. There was the one thing I put in.
May I ask you
Yes.
about that little girl that, was absent for a while? Did they tell you why she had been absent for a while?
It was a boy, and he was absent.
Oh boy.
He was absent. Probably they didn't give me a real answer. They would say he was sick, but I happen to know different because he was going to work. And we don't live that far apart, so I could actually, and he lived down below the place where he worked, a couple blocks down towards the river compared to where he used to work. And I'd stop in, and when he didn't show up every once in a while, I'd stop at the gas station where he worked and say, has this person been here? Like, yeah, he was here yesterday. Like, okay. Yeah. So this is.
Well, they made him a part of being a breadwinner instead of going to school and having an education. Right? Because he was going to work, right? He was going to work.
Well, he wasn't working during the school day. That I'm pretty sure of, because in our state it's not legal. He would have to be declared emancipated, and with his cognitive state, that wouldn't have been possible.
So he
So
just wasn't going to school, but in the afternoons or whatever, he was working.
yes,
So you really didn't get your answer. Why is he not going to school?
but he came after that for a while. So sometimes in urban settings, it's not unusual for teachers to make those calls, phone calls or whatever. What
So
I
did he
wanted to do,
graduate that year?
what?
Did he graduate that year? Did he
No,
complete the school year?
trying to remember.
I'm
If
like a
he
Miss
graduated,
Detective, okay? So forgive me.
I don't remember him graduating, but then
Oh,
I
wow.
left that position. He might have. It's been a long time since I've seen him. He might have in the position in the situation he was in. He probably would have graduated a year or two after I left that post. He had to be. He would have obtained something called an IEP diploma back then, so he wouldn't have got your
Okay.
average high school diploma. But yeah,
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I mean, women are. This is the thing that bothers me, and I'll keep talking. I keep harping on this. Women are not treated as equals, and you can look at. I'm just going to read Bukhari, Volume 1, Book 2, number 28. It says, narrated by Ibn Abbas, the prophet said, I was shown the hellfire, and the majority of its dwellers were women who were ungrateful. It was asked, do they disbelieve in Allah, or are they ungrateful to Allah? He replied, they are ungrateful to their husbands and are ungrateful to the favors of the good, charitable deeds done to them. If you have always been good, benevolent to one of them, and then she sees something in you not of her liking, she will say, I have never received any good of you. They don't have any concept of, because this is they don't have a concept that women can be equals. So you'll find, if you were to go online today to something like memory.org, or to you just go to Google and you go to the news area and you do a search. You just type in women in Islam, marriage in Islam, and you will find articles where, there was a case, was it yesterday or today? Someone was just they just did an honor killing. I think I can look that one up. I just saw one. I think it was this morning or yesterday.
Where?
Let me just look. I think it was on the old Jihad. Was on Jihad Watch or Robert Spencer.
Uh-huh.
Just,
Was it in America?
no.
Okay.
I think I saw two. Actually, I'm thinking about it. Let's see. I'm at Robert Spencer's now. Let's see. Muslim cleric converts Muslim screaming. Okay, so pull this one up. This one was, let's see, I'll probably have to go to the next one. Early day. Okay. Did not read this morning, I guess, so it would have been yesterday's.
What was it? A daughter they killed?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
most
think
likely it's
daughter.
daughters. Yeah, so sad.
And under Islam, this is the other thing. This is where I say hate is such a horrible thing in Islam. They teach hatred. They preach hatred. So retaliation for bodily injury or death. This is 03.1. Retaliation is obligatory when there is an intentional injury against life or limb. All right? Retaliation is obligatory. Think about that. Let's go back one more. We'll go to let's see, 1.1. This is about, I believe it's about murder. Okay. 1.1. Retaliation is obligatory against anyone who kills a human being purely, intentionally, and without right. All right. What are the exceptions to that? The first one has to do with someone who's says a child or an insane person. Okay, we get that one. Number 2, a Muslim for killing a non-Muslim. Number 3, a Jewish or Christian subject of an Islamic State for killing an apostate. Number 4, a father or mother or their fathers or mothers for killing their offspring or offspring's offspring. I wish this wasn't in print. I wish this wasn't something everybody could pick up and
Does
find.
it say why, though? Does it give a reason why
No.
they would kill their offspring or their
No.
offspring's offspring?
It
So
doesn't.
they don't give a reason.
You don't
They
have to
just
have
say
a
it's
reason.
good. Yeah, okay. They
That's
just
what it
say it's
comes-
okay.
And according to I'm sure you have to have a reason. I would say apostasy, or you don't think a person's Islamic enough. Yeah, there's just too many stories out there where this is happening. It's such a shocking horror. Again, it happens too often. I'm looking for that one I saw.
So they're just saying it's all fair game. If she doesn't want to wear the hijab, she doesn't want to wear the burqa, she may be dating a non-Muslim boy, she may be wanting to put a little bit of makeup on, and whatnot. Right. Which I've read those too.
Yeah, I'll share this. This was Pakistan, the one I had. So let me just pull this up. Okay. I'm online. Yeah. All right. So let me share this one out here. And this is from Pakistan. The sisters were killed. Pakistani Spanish sisters killed for honor in Gujarat. Police say Anisa Abbas and Aruj Abbas were lured back from Spain to Gujarat and shot on Friday night. This was May 21st. Okay, we're just talking a few days ago. Punjab police were on Saturday investigating the murder of 2 Pakistani Spanish sisters as an honor killing, a brutal patriarchal practice that sees women put to death for bringing shame on their families. A spokesperson for the Punjab police said Anisa Abbas, 24, and Aruj Abbas, 21, were seeking separation from their husbands and were lured back from Spain to Gujarat, where they were strangled and shot on Friday night. The young ladies,
So what did they do with the parents? Is it legal and case closed in Pakistan?
It says both the sisters were residents of Nathia village in Gujarat district, returned to Pakistan from Spain on May 19th, along with their mother, Azra Bibi. On the night of May 20th, the 2 sisters were shot dead in their house of their maternal uncle, Hanif, alias Goga. The police registered a case on the complaint of Asi Yasir Nadim against 7 suspects and 2 unidentified persons. The suspects included Anisa and Uruj's brother, Shayar Abbas, and Uncle Hanif, alias Goga, and cousins. So all the accused managed to flee the scene and are on the run. The family created a story to convince them to come back to Pakistan for a couple of days, and they killed them because they were getting divorced. And police said the women were being pressured by their spouses, who were also their cousins. See, that's the part of the story that didn't. Marrying your cousins, if you don't think that's in Islam, yeah. So these girls did nothing but ask for a divorce, and they were murdered because they asked for a divorce. And that's, as we just read, family members can do this, and it's permissible. Will the people who commit the honor killing be prosecuted? In Pakistan?
Most likely not.
If again, any country where Islam is where in their constitution it says Sharia is the supreme law of the land. Any country where it says that, I'm talking about Egypt. I'm talking about Jordan. I'm talking any country where the Constitution puts Sharia as a supreme law of the land. They cannot legally prosecute them because they had permission.
So then why do they run then? If they know that the Sharia will back them up, why run?
Because most people run when they know they've done something bad.
Yeah, I know, but if the Sharia is
There
supposed to
are
be there to
cases.
protect them,
Yeah, there are cases. There are several cases that would have to do with Sharia and have to do with sexual assault in Western Europe. And the people who get caught, the Muslims, are standing there saying, "What did I do wrong? I mean, so what? I sexually assaulted her. So what? I raped her. And she didn't have a job on. She was waiting. She was asking me to have it and to do that type of thing. What's wrong?" And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've read that in news articles. I really can't.
yeah,
And when you hear this, it says, "Well, that's allowed in my country. She's not covered, so she's a prostitute."
they're
And
not in their country no more, though.
yes, and that's what they come out and they say those things, and that little article never makes it abroad here. That's the sad part. They try to hide those things, but there are places who will put that information out, and I'm thankful for that. Some of this
You know,
information is, again, so shocking, it's disgusting, but yeah,
I
they
put
don't always run.
I put those crimes also on the government itself. If they're going to bring them in, they need to educate them about the laws of the land.
I agree.
You know, yeah.
Well, the problem is you take in millions of people, and I blame Merkel for a lot of this, and just the liberal mindset that they have to provide a safe haven without protecting their own.
Right.
And I'm sorry, if you don't know if the people coming in are safe, if you can't identify them, they don't come with identification, and you still accept them, something's wrong. I mean, I get it
Exactly.
if you spend 2 or 3 years doing background checks and don't find anything, maybe they could get through. But at some time, you have to take responsibility. You allowed them in. They did X or Y, and those things are illegal. Who let them in?
They did.
Okay. Yeah. So it comes back to, okay, I would be doing some follow-up. Okay, you let in this person. I mean, I would go back so far as to say we knew the Muslim Brotherhood were coming in through Canada. We knew that's how the Muslim Brotherhood primarily got here when they started coming to the United States. They went into Canada, they became citizens, and then they came here. My question is, since the FBI had to know this, was there any follow-up on who was giving approvals? If not, why not?
Right.
Uh, I'm being that specific to that particular time period. I'm talking about the early 1960s, 1960 to 1964. Who was giving those stamps of approval to Canadian citizens coming to the United States who had lived in Middle Eastern countries? Who did that? I mean, because there's a large amount of them who came here and then set up shop and in colleges and whatever and became dangerous influences. Dangerous influences. We're talking about some of these persons had been involved in financing jihad, terrorism. Some of these persons, again, a lot of them became college professors. And, the FBI openly admits that some of these were, today, they'll openly admit, yes, some of them were members of the Muslim Brotherhood. But they can't come out and talk about that. Why? Because, the people in charge don't like you to talk about those things. But it's all documented. That's the crazy thing. This is all highly documented. The funniest thing about that? You know who documented most of it? The Canadians. We don't like to talk about it. There's some great Canadians out there. Can't think of there's a site done by a great Canadian patriot. And I had the privilege talking with a guy who ran the site. And he was the one who showed me how this is all done. And I, part of doing investigative research, you meet and talk to people who you never expect. And this guy goes around and testifies in trials and stuff on those kind of issues and things. And people are using his documents that he puts up in court cases. So you sit there like, yeah, okay. And he could prove all this was coming, like, and I, and when I was doing my research, I learned a ton that I didn't expect. I didn't expect to find. I thought when they came from Iraq, okay, they came from Iraq, they came here. No, came from Iraq. They went to Iraq or Iran. They went to Canada, and there was a reason why. Because during that time period, we were not accepting people in this country from there. Oh, okay. So they go to Canada, become citizens, and then they walk across the bridge or drive across, and all of a sudden they're here and they're seeking citizenship. Now, I have no problem with regular Canadians doing that. I mean, I have, we have a lot of great. I live just about on the border. I mean, you walk out into the water. That's the border for me. I'm 1 block from the beach, and you walk out X amount of miles into the water. You're not going to walk that far. But we have every single Border Patrol officer here in Rochester will tell you we have a porous border. In fact, it's so porous you can't put. It's more porous than down south because there's nothing to stop people from coming here. What do we have? We have a river and we have a lake in New York State that keeps them from coming here. That's it. We don't have places where you can walk and stand or watch, and most of the roads that go along it's just you can't watch everything. It's not easy. So again, when you interact with Border Patrol, just be thankful they're doing a great job, trying to do their best. They're doing what they're allowed to do, and it's frustrating because they can't do what they want.
Well, what's the police on the seas and rivers called? I forget that name.
Coast Guard, you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. What about Coast Guards?
Coast Guard can and can't handle those cases. So it's interesting.
Then make a division where it is, to where they're protecting America, right, on those rivers.
So the Coast Guard and the Navy and it's interesting. So the Coast Guard gets used for many different reasons. I have a friend who is former Navy, and he was talking about how the Coast Guard, how they would take a Coast Guard flag with them, and on their Navy ship, they would fly the Coast Guard flag, and they become a Coast Guard boat, so they could pull over drug dealers. Here you got this huge military weapons on a Coast Guard ship all of a sudden. Okay, all right. Then I was talking to the people from the Border Patrol, and they got these two are talking back and forth. My friend who was former Navy and the guy still in the Border Patrol outfit saying, yeah, we do the same thing here. We'll go out in the Coast Guard ship, and because we can't pull over anything, the Coast Guard can. They can pull over anyone on the water, and they'll do a search and they'll find illegal aliens and stuff like that. And that's how that's how a lot of their work gets done on the water. They have to work cooperatively with the Coast Guard. So it's not easy work.
Good. Then let them do that in New York.
Well, they are.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. We have the Coast Guard station right here as well. We have the Border Patrol just another major, just a street, just a couple streets south of that one. So they work together quite well. And I've heard great, you see the Coast Guard out here training doing their running, and DHS, Border Patrol doing what they can. It's most of what I would say the Border Patrol is doing is they have to drive miles. Think about from the tip of the Atlantic Ocean all the way down to from New York State, the top of New York State, all the way down to where I am, and which is I'm in Rochester. I mean, that's a lot of land to cover. And we think about our borders being so porous. They're not wrong. It used to be easy to go back and forth. In fact, it's not that long ago. On my honeymoon, we went to Canada, and I pretended I was asleep, and I forgot my ID. They let us in. They don't do that anymore. I mean, with good reason, but it was easy to go back and forth. We used to do it all the time as kids, and I have fond memories of just running it. We'd go to Niagara Falls all the time. It's just something easy to do. Going back and forth now is not as easy, especially with Trudeau traitor, and the traitorous, treasonous. Can't say anything nice about him. I really can't.
We can't.
The man who pretends to be Muslim, the man who pretends to be anything, just so he can get his picture. I don't know what to. I guess for ladies, they think he's pretty, and that's why they vote for him. But I can't.
Oh, jeez.
I can't see a reason, because that's when I talk to the Canadians about why they voted for him. Every single one of them said it's because of women. They think he's cute. It's like, I did not expect that answer.
That's stupid, and I'm sure there's a lot of men too. He's thinking he's a handsome guy and everything, and you can't go by that. You have to know their policies and things like that. When is his election?
He doesn't get elected. That's the important part to understand.
You mean there's no elections in Canada no more for
no
prime minister or
the prime
president?
minister is not elected. He's chosen by parliament.
Okay, so when does this come up again? Because how long has he been there?
Not sure.
How long has he been prime minister?
Let me just check. Trudeau.
Do they have a 4-year or 6-year in office?
4.
Okay, just like America. Okay.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of Canadians say they don't like him.
Yeah, he just got in his third election victory in 2021.
His third election?
Yeah.
3 times. Jeez. 4, 8, 12. So that's 12 years gonna be.
Yeah, it was his third.
Jeez.
And the headline here, I'll show you the headline. This will make you laugh.
Do they have a limit though, Paul? Like us?
No, they don't. I don't think they have term limits. Let me double check that. But let me share this headline because it'll make everybody laugh. Sometimes we all need to laugh.
Do we need to laugh?
Oh yes, this will make you laugh.
Of course.
How's this for a headline? Justin Trudeau secures third victory in election nobody wanted.
Wow.
Yeah.
That really tells you that the government is just corrupt inside. That needs to be cleaned up.
Canada, Canada controls the media. There's only, at least the last time I checked, there was still only rebel media that was not controlled by the Canadian government. Sweden, same thing. They control all of the media, with the exception of the one that I like to share, Samnyt, SAMNYTT.se. So all of these news sources will generally, that are Canadian, will just do what the government tells them. So of course, the one I'm sharing with you is American, even though the person who wrote this lived in Toronto. Again, he secured his third election, decision to call a snap victory. Again, this is the Liberals had won 158 seats, short of the 170 needed for majority. Conservatives won 119, largely mirrored the outcome 2019. So until you get people in office who are willing to do what's needed, let's see, how long is this time for? I don't think it's 4 years. I think it's like 2 or 3. I don't think he's been in that long. I don't know how. I have to go look it up.
I think he's been in there too long.
I was
Oh,
about to say that he's been in there too long.
well, we've mockingly called, they mockingly call it, okay, we've got our Obama now. When I was up there, that's what they were saying. I was in London and I was in Toronto. That was what they said. We've got our Obama. We copy you too much. But the citizens don't get to vote on this. That's what it comes down to. Parliament votes, and Parliament doesn't seem to like Canadians as a whole, which is sad. So, this is a huge separation. And you got to think about Canadian government being the old England and how old England would treat their citizens. And it's kind of how it is now. That's why you have the problems that you have. Like, we can look at the rape gangs, and the government not doing enough. Well, they're afraid of not being elected again. Well, the only ones that are concerned about that are the people in Parliament, and the people in Parliament basically say, "Well, screw you! I deserve these positions," and that's kind of how it is here in across the pond in Canada. They don't have. Canadians are afraid to express themselves as conservatives in general. I say that because they know that once they do that, there's a chance they'll be brought up before the Human Rights Commission, and they will be fined. I don't think I've heard of more than 1 or 2 wins for individuals against the Human Rights Commission. And then the persons who bring the charges, there's generally just one person who brings all the charges and wins all the money. So this is where it's a lot
the
of corruption.
Parliament has the rights, but then the people don't have the rights.
It's what
They put them on human rights against them, but then the people don't have human rights. That's
you only have human rights if you're a quote minority. Yeah. And who brings the charges? Again, that's I'll see if I can get someone that'd be a good show. I have friends who could talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
That just is another issue altogether. I'm waiting for the day Canada decides they need a new constitution, because then again they might have their freedom. They might have their freedoms restored, but in having another, I don't know if I'd want to try and write a constitution with so many commies in charge. So that's the issue I have. And that's the issue where I'm kind of concerned, where I see in this country, we have the Convention of States being discussed, and people are all excited about that. Oh yeah, we're going to have another convention. Like, do you really want, Nancy Pelosi and other people, or politicians involved in this? And, I've heard the arguments, well, they can't be involved in it. Well, there's nothing saying they can't. It's, up to the individual states to decide who's going to go there. I mean, you can put this in. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to think about. And just to think that something could go wrong and you could have less freedoms as a result, that's the reason why I'm a little leery of it. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. I don't think it's the correct thing right now. And I go to a conservative gathering that talks about this every month, where we stand in that particular issue. And I just don't see it being good for America. That's my personal opinion, but it doesn't make it fact. It's just a personal opinion. All right. I'm going to say good night to everybody. God bless. Thank you for joining me.
Okay, well, thanks for having the show.
Archie, God bless you all. See you soon.
God bless you, sir.
Good night. Thanks.
All right. All right.